Windsor-Essex broke 52 records for a local bird sightings last year. There was a high count of pelicans and a first nesting record for a rare and endangered owl. Our next guest has it all compiled in a 36-page report, which reads like a birder's yearbook for 2024. He took on the task a couple years earlier after noticing that no one had been tracking all the activity of the many avid birders in the region. Cam Chevalier is a grad student at the University of Windsor, and he joins us in our studio. Good morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, how many different species of birds were spotted in our region in 2024?
305, which is pretty incredible, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot, yeah. All time we've recorded about 400, so to get over 75% of that in 1 year is really impressive for sure.
And your report refers to Essex County just for clarity. Does that also include bird activity in the city of Windsor?
Absolutely, yeah. The city of Windsor and obviously the Point Pelee area where we record a lot of the species that we see in a year just because that's such an important area of biodiversity here in the county, but yeah.
What was the most exciting bird that was spotted?
Most exciting bird, that's always a tough one. There's so many exciting ones, but you did mention the barn owl. That stood out as a major exciting point for us. And we did have Canada's first nesting record of blue grosbeak, and that was actually in the Windsor area, cool enough. So that was just in the Ojibwe complex. So it was very interesting to have a first nesting record for the entire country last year. So that definitely stood out as a highlight as well.
What's it like when you see a rare bird that you know is breaking a record?
It's a pretty incredible moment. That's sort of, I think, the birder's high, if you can call it that. It's that really exciting moment of recognizing that something is very different from what we normally get to see around here. And as birders, we kind of get familiar with what species we can expect as rarities, things that we might be hoping to see, and finally encountering one of those is really, really rewarding. So yeah, definitely that's an excitement.
So what was it like when you saw the barn owl?
That's a dream come true. That's such a rare species for us. We've had 4 records since 2014, so basically in the last 10 years, which might seem like enough. But really, the last report from the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas only suggests that like 5 to 10 pairs breed in the whole province. So coming across any individual barn owl is really kind of a magical experience. And yeah, we got to see it fly and sit in the trees and stuff. It was really incredible.
Tell us the story. Where did you see it?
So it was found by a good friend, Mike St. Pierre, on private property, unfortunately, in Windsor. But we got permission to enter the property, and we got it. I was at school when I found out about it, and was able to make it in time before dusk. And yeah, we got to observe it there on the property with Mike and a couple other close friends of mine. It was awesome.
Yeah. And you spotted some Arctic terns last year. Why is that significant?
Yeah, so Arctic tern is a pretty major rarity for us. We only had a handful of records before last year. Last year, we actually had 3 different Arctic terns in the county, and I spotted 2 of them. I was fortunate enough to be the one to find 2 of them at the tip of Point Pelee. And it's the world's longest migrating animal, so it travels all the way from the Arctic to the Antarctic every year. So it showing up in Point Pelee is pretty rare. Anywhere inland really off the ocean is always a rarity. And what was especially exciting about the second one on June 19th is that there's a huge group of students down at the tip of Point Pelee. And so I was able to share that find with a whole bunch of school children and let them look through my binoculars and my scope and everything. And they were able to really kind of enjoy that experience along with me.
Did they understand the significance?
Not at first, but we were able to kind of convey that to them. I think there was so many other birders there who were as excited to see it as I was, and the teachers were excited, and I think they used it as kind of a teachable moment, which was great.
How much work goes into preparing this report?
Quite a bit of work, and it's certainly not something I do alone. I have a lot of collaborators that assist me with that, but I pulled data from a variety of sources, primarily like the eBird community science platform, which is run by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology out of Ithaca, New York. That's kind of become the gold standard for bird reports in the world, really. Also from iNaturalist, which is another community science platform, more kind of broad scale, not just birds. Then there's some kind of social media pages directed at birders, so from there as well. And then word of mouth, there are some birders who are just not connected to some of the other channels and who will report things directly to me for inclusion in the summary.
Wow, that's a lot of different sources to put together into one report. And I mentioned earlier, but you took on this job because you saw no one else was doing it. Maybe I can understand why that is now, but but it used to be there. So what happened? What's the story?
Yeah, so Alan Wormington was a phenomenal resource on birds in Ontario and Essex County and the Point Pelee area specifically. And Alan's work was and remains one of the most incredible resources on birds that's available to birders, really. And Alan unfortunately passed away in 2016. And in that time from 2016 to my first iteration in 2022, it hadn't really been picked up. And, just like I said, Alan's work was so incredible, such a phenomenal resource for us that I felt it was something that was important to kind of bring back. So I talked to some friends about it, and they were really encouraging to assist me in that. And began kind of compiling, trying to match the level of detail that Alan used to put into his work, and allowing us to kind of make some more year-over-year comparisons across all of the species that we get to see here in Essex County.
Why is it important to have this record?
I think it's really important to continue the work that Alan was doing, along with the articles and stuff that people have been writing, like I was saying, to be able to learn more about our birds, especially year over year, as we're seeing population changes, whether that's increases due to successful conservation or decreases due to habitat loss, and something especially that's kind of public leaning, because a lot of these platforms are talking about eBird, as community science oriented as they are, they're not necessarily super easy for the public to understand, and I'm trying to break things down in a way that anybody can kind of digest and understand.
Do we have any idea of how many people are into birding in Windsor-Essex?
That's a tough question. I think everybody's into birding to some degree, and I don't think it's fair to say that someone who looks at the birds on their backyard feeder isn't a birder. And all of that data really matters. Sometimes people find really interesting things at their backyard feeder, and so we have a massive community. And Point Pelee, if you're ever there during the Festival of Birds, is just this phenomenal place of. It gets a little hectic sometimes, but people visiting from all over the world coming to our area specifically for the biodiversity that we host. So it's pretty impressive.
How did you get involved?
So I grew up in LaSalle, not far from Ojibwe Park, and that was really a huge thing for me. My parents really fostered a love of nature in me, but I took a lot of camps there with people like Tom Prenny, Karen Cedar, Paul Pratt, who are phenomenal resources on the biodiversity of Essex County and really helped kind of foster that love of nature in me. And then around the time of the pandemic, I found some peers similar in age to myself who kind of shared my passion. And that's really what brought birding from a hobby to a passion for sure.
Is Ojibwe your favorite spot?
I'd love to say that Point Pelee, I think, remains my favorite location. I spend a lot of time there. I do work outside of the park as well at Pelee Wings Outfitters, where I sell binoculars and spotting scopes mostly to birders. So I spend a lot of time in the Leamington area, but I still love going to Ojibwe, absolutely.
What's left on your wish list?
Not much. I'm very fortunate to have seen a lot in Essex County. There's a few species, things like Swainson's hawk and Chuck-Will's widow, these rare species that I've not yet encountered. But as for the regular species, I've been very fortunate to encounter nearly everything we can hope to see in the average year.
There's nothing left on your list?
Those species I mentioned are the biggest ones, but I've been very fortunate to encounter a lot of things. And last year of those 305, I was fortunate to see a good number. So absolutely, yeah.
And you don't just spot birds, but I understand you've spotted a rattlesnake as well.
Yes, a number of years ago, I was bit by an eastern Massasauga rattlesnake here in Essex County, actually in LaSalle. So I've had my close encounters with nature, both birds and snakes, and across the board, really.
So safe to say that snake is off your wish list. You don't need to see it again.
I don't need to see another Massasauga. I think I'm good.
All right. Thanks so much, Cam, for coming in this morning. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Cam Chevalier is a grad student at the University of Windsor. He compiled an annual report of bird sightings in Windsor-Essex.